And here we go. Hello, Brittany King. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you, Kimmy? Long time no see.
I know, it's been a hot minute.
It's been a hot minute, yes.
I'm chilling. I'm good. I'm having a nice cup of coffee. How's your Friday going?
My Friday, it's funny you said Friday. I forgot it was Friday. Thank God it's Friday. It's good in Indiana. We have a ton of snow. It's like 10 inches of snow outside. Yeah, winter advisory. We're all inside. We have to stay here. But I know it's not snowing in California. It's nice out there.
Very not snowing. It's nice and warm. Yeah, it's very perfect conditions right now. So
I'm glad. I'm happy for you.
Thanks.
I'm happy for you. Yes. One of us are in the struggle.
So I wanted to talk about something a bit more. There was recent news. I stumbled across this initially from Barry Weiss's Substack, Common Sense with Barry Weiss, and then I dug deeper. And I heard this terrible news that the Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison was banned in Florida's Polk County. So the last time we had this conversation on your live stream last year, The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison was one of your recommended, like highly recommended books. And it was something that you considered empowering, right?
Yes. This first book, The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. Have you read this book?
I've seen that. I haven't read it. I've heard great things.
This is what got me to really decide to be a writer. Because she wrote about colorism in the most painful way, but so true.
Yeah.
And it's not a triumph necessarily, but she is.
Oh,
that is why she is my number one favorite writer and in the top favorite people of all time. Sadly, she did pass away a few years ago, but this book is what started my writing career when I decided I'm going to be a writer. So
that's and so it was very surprising when I heard this news that it was one of the 16 books that was banned. There we go. The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, like, how old were you when you read The Bluest Eye, and what was that experience like?
Well, I was 18 years old when I read The Bluest Eye. And the only reason why it took me that long, you could say, is because I didn't even know about Toni Morrison until 18. And first I want to say, like I said in the live stream, and why I recommend the book is because this is the book that made me decide to follow my passion as a writer at 18 years old after I read it. And it's one of the first books that showed me how powerful language could be in a positive way. And also, I wrote my college thesis on this in 2012. I submitted that in a thesis literary conference at Charleston in 2014. And that conference, the acronym for that conference is MELUS, MOLUS, and it stands for Multi-Ethnic Literature United States. So I submitted there, presented there. I champion this book. I recommend it to anyone, no matter your race, your background, your ethnicity, because this book gets at the complexities of humanity, specifically in America, and examines various hardships so everyday people can better understand it. And The Bluest Eye tackles so many themes, and it's because it tackles so many themes like colorism. It was the book that, and it sounds very cliche, but it's the one book besides the Bible, hallelujah, that changed my life. That literally changed my life and beyond writing. Also, I'll be remiss if I don't mention this. Toni Morrison has won numerous awards, including in 1993, she won the Nobel Prize in Literature. So she's a literary icon. She's what the kids would call the GOAT, and she's a genius. So I recommend her to everyone.
That's lovely. And that's awesome. You said you entered, like, that was your thesis book? This is just a sub sort of like curious question.
Yeah, I wrote my thesis on it, and it was examining colorism and the hierarchy of Black and what that all meant. And I utilized The Bluest Eye for that.
That's awesome.
So after my thesis was submitted, one of my mentors said, hey, there's a conference that I think you should talk about this at. And I
Got
did.
it.
And it's funny because when I talked about this at the conference, this conference is like for people that with PhDs and master's
Wow.
degrees. And at this point, I just had my BA. Like I
Mm.
literally just graduated. And a few people were like, hey, you should go to our college. I'm like, well, I wish I could, but, you know, get some free education. I got my BA. But yeah, like, so I'm that passionate about this book.
Yeah.
That because it has so many things about it that can be helpful for everyone, especially now.
Interesting. Okay, so I know that in your November 23rd, 2021 article for Zora titled "Banning Books Bans Freedom of Speech," Toni Morrison's Bluest Eye isn't about porn, it's about pain. In that article, you referenced an excerpt that explores colorism. Speaking of colorism, could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. Well, I want to say this first. I want to give a brief definition of colorism because I know I utilize this term a lot and some people might not know what it is. So the definition is the prejudice or discrimination against individuals with dark skin tone, typically among people of the same ethnic or racial group. And the origin of this color hierarchy in America was constructed during American slavery when light-skinned enslaved people were placed in the house because they were seen as more domesticated, more beautiful, more intelligent, versus the dark-skinned enslaved people in the fields. They were seen as less human, ugly, even barbaric, etc. And this notion that light-skinned Black people is better than dark-skinned Black people, or prettier than, or more aesthetically pleasing, unfortunately lived on after American slavery and is pervasive in America, but not only in this country. It's a global phenomenon that's very popular in Africa and Asia. But I included that childhood memory when I was like 7 years old in first grade. I included that memory in there, and hopefully it'll be linked in the description.
I'll definitely link it for sure.
Because it's such a thorough excerpt, and it's just like a memory back of me when I was 7 or 8.
Yeah, very powerful.
But yeah, so I just put this in there because I wanted to be really transparent with the reader to show how I felt ugly for having brown skin as a kid. And that colorism is something I dealt with until 18 years old. But this book, when I encountered it at 18, changed my unhealthy perspective of my brown skin and made me face myself. Like reading this book held me accountable, and Toni Morrison was showing me how damaging this thinking is, no matter if I think about it with other people or myself. She showed me that colorism is a liar, one, and also that it's wrong to think about yourself this way and people this way. So she took me to task, like in the best way. And I'm so glad that happened at 18 and it didn't happen later on in life. So.
Well, thank you for, first of all, defining the origins of colorism and also just like sharing that. If anyone is curious to read the article, please check it out. I will definitely link it in the description. And that excerpt is really powerful from your essay. It was like, whoo, child. I was like, it was a lot. It was heavy, but good.
And I remember it still at 32. I still remember that moment. And no, I don't hold no, animosity. And it was actually from one of my best friends at the time. But it just is a memory. And kids are kids, right? But it's just a memory that sticks. So
So there was a recent Time article, as I was digging into like the whole thing being banned, The Bluest Eye, along with 15 other books, it was one of them. The Time article that I looked up, and I'll also link that for anyone curious, it said that the controversy around The Bluest Eye had more to do with an adult scene rather than the fact that it was talking about or dealing with colorism. So can you briefly explain that scene?
Yeah.
Or at least what happened?
I'll do both.
Okay.
I'll do both. So that scene is actually contingent off the main theme of colorism. And this scene is why I titled my Zora essay, "The Bluest Eye is not porn, it's about pain." And actually it was really inspired by an incident in Virginia where a school superintendent sent a letter to the Virginia Beach School Board saying that Toni Morrison's novel was pornographic. But later she admitted that she never read The Bluest Eye. When they asked her follow-up questions, she was like, well, I heard from so-and-so, right? So we have that. But the unfortunate thing is that seems to be the case happening a lot across this country, where people want to ban books and cancel people and censor things because they haven't heard it from themselves. They haven't digested themselves. They heard it from so-and-so, or they hear a clip, or they hear or read an excerpt and think, okay, I know the whole story, and you don't know the whole story. So the fact that people aren't researching things for themselves is a problem. And that's the problem with The Bluest Eye here. And also the problem is context.
Yeah.
So with that said, I'm going to give like the most brief synopsis of the book and then explain that scene and why Toni Morrison had it. So the main character of the book is an 8-year-old Black girl with dark skin, and her name is Bacola. And this book is set in 1941 in Ohio. And Ohio is actually where Toni Morrison is from. So the reason why this book is called The Bluest Eye is because Bacola longs for blue eyes and prays for them each night. And she wants these eyes because to her, other children with these eyes who are white were seen as valuable, were seen as the wanted, as beautiful, whether it was just in TV with cartoons or in real life. And since Bacola had very dark skin, she not only felt excluded and not accepted, but she very much was in the book. She was mistreated and devalued by almost everyone in her life because they thought she was ugly, because she was dark-skinned. So this controversial scene is Morrison judiciously using sexual abuse by Bacola's father to show how mentally damaged Bacola was from self-hatred and receiving hatred. So it's one scene of this. And also Morrison writes Bacola's response to this abuse as almost like grateful, with Bacola confusing her father's detestable actions as showing love, so that the reader, regardless of race or your background or anything, can understand how damaging colorism is. But the larger theme of this book is for people, especially adults, to understand that children pay attention and absorb everything. That they understand how they're treated, good or bad, whether they're ignored or not. It will affect them. And that's what she wanted the reader to really understand. But this is the thing. On the other side, I can understand if someone only heard that scene, I understand if they're hesitant about the book. I would get it. But if you read the entire book, you will understand that scene is like the last thing this book is really about. Because Morrison was such, she passed away in 2019, but she was such a thoughtful writer, and she took language seriously. Like the words that she used were very on purpose, and she didn't just write to write. She didn't just make scenes to make people feel uncomfortable. There was a reason for that. And the reason was always for people to like exercise their empathy.
Yeah.
It might bring you out of your comfort zone for a moment, but if she can get you to empathize with the reader, that's what her goal was. Wow. So I understand that scene is a little bit polarizing. And it is. I mean, that scene should make you uncomfortable, but she does it for a reason. Yeah. And people need to read the entire book to understand that reason.
Absolutely. Brief tangent. Have you heard of the movie Redeeming Love that just came out?
Is it Netflix? Because I can watch it. But
it came out on a big screen, theater, cinema.
I love how you're like, those big screens that we used to have and go to and have popcorn and stuff. Yeah. So yeah, I think I remember that.
So it's
so based, 2019.
I know. I'm like that thing. No, okay. So this movie was based, and it's catered to a Christian audience, and it's based on a book by Francine Rivers, same title. I guess it's a little bit different from the movie, but they do have like an entire like. It's not graphic. It's not like you don't see everything, but there is. Sorry, spoiler alert. There is a RAPE scene in there. And it's suggested, but it's like a drop in the movie, and it's necessary to empathize with the character, the main character, who's like this girl. It's based on the book of Hosea, actually, from the Bible. So there's this girl in prostitution, and then this man comes to deliver her, but you wouldn't know how dire the situation was unless you kind of you realize that there was, like rape and abuse and beating involved, pedophilia. Anyway, spoiling it a little bit too much. I just want to say that to echo your point.
Yeah.
It's like, and I think you talked about this in your article for Zora as well, that some books are like preserved, that like they're nasty, like Huckleberry, not nasty, but like.
I mean, he says, the N-word 200 times.
Exactly. So there's a way it's like, it's a little bit unfair in like some picking and choosing. There's also this book, Mouse, that I heard. I haven't read it, but it's about the Holocaust, and because it has graphic drawings, not even photos of like dead bodies and that sort of thing, it got banned as well. But so I want to dive back into your Zora article title. You wrote that banning books bans freedom of speech in the title. So can you explain a little bit more about your take on censorship?
So in regards to books, I can understand parents wanting to decide like what books their children or teens read, and those discussions are important and needs to be had. And the funny thing is I'm not, and I say the funny thing is because I've been talking about Toni Morrison in this essay and on Twitter and everything. I'm not necessarily advocating for this book to be taught in schools to children and teens. What I am advocating against is for someone or an institution to outright remove or ban books from schools or libraries, because I think this inevitably criminalizes that author. And teens and teenagers, like if they hear a book is being banned, they might equate that banning as that author being bad or shouldn't be read. And how unfortunate would it be if people from this generation or generations to come ignored all literature from Toni Morrison because they believed her work was unsuitable to read because they heard it once when they were a kid. So also I have a problem with these bans and these removal of books from schools and libraries because it's inconsistent. Like you're talking about those books, Huckleberry Finn and like Mouse, which I don't think should be banned, but I understand why you brought those up. It's inconsistent with why people want to ban and are questioning certain books, but not other books. Like with the Bluest Eye, that scene's in question and sexual content's in question within the book. But if that's the case, then why isn't like Romeo and Juliet, which is an adolescent love story that romanticizes teen suicide and teen homicide and premarital sex, not being pulled off the shelves? Like this has yet made anyone's list. And the thing is, Romeo and Juliet is actually a book that's read in almost every high school. I think you've read it, I've read it, everyone's read it. And the Bluest Eye is not on, I can't say not for everyone, but normally not on the curriculum for schools nationwide. It just isn't. It might be on the shelves of a library, and it actually might collect dust because a lot of people might not even know who Toni Morrison is or have heard of the Bluest Eye, but everyone's heard of Romeo and Juliet. And I'm being facetious bringing up Romeo and Juliet because I think that's a great book. I like Shakespeare. I don't think he should be banned. That's not the point I'm making. The point I'm trying to make is there's inconsistent reasons why certain books are being looked at as bad and should be banned, and then books that have that same element, no one bats an eye at, that we've been reading for years. So yeah, but I want to end, I don't want to say I want to end on this book because I know you wanted me to be brief, but I'm passionate.
No, please go on.
Okay, I want to say this because I didn't really understand the power of books until 16, 17, 18. This legendary writer that I always talk about, James Baldwin, once said, "You think your pain and your heartbreak are unprecedented in history of the world, but then you read." It was the books that taught me that the things that tormented me the most were the very things that connected me to all people who were alive. So not only does banning books ban voices and bans people's freedom of speech, but if we start banning books, we ban our chances at connecting and understanding each other better. So my only hope for your viewers or whoever watches this is simply just check out the Bluest Eye for yourself. Make up your own mind about it. It's not to say that I want you to love the book. It's just give it a chance.
Yeah.
And after you're done, call me and we'll talk about it. But actually, I want to, and I'm going to send this to you, but I know people are like, oh, just read the book, read the book. Some people might not have access to buy the
That's
book for
right.
$15, or it might not be at libraries. So I know there's the PDF version online.
Okay.
That's free.
Yeah.
And if I can find it, I am going to send it to you so your audience can read it if they want.
Thank you so much. And if you send it to me, I'll throw it in the description. And that's actually a really good way to just make sure that book gets out. No excuses. Nobody has any excuses.
No excuses.
So thank you so much. I do have a few more remarks that I want to make. You're an open-minded person. So like, you're not coming from a place of like, you know, how can I say this? You understand, like your essay on free Black thought is like, understand both sides, like listen to everybody. And I know a lot of people who are my who watch this channel or who are my subscribers are very active in like the fight to like ban CRT, but I feel like there is some language in there that makes us kind of like a little bit jaded when you kind of people are tired of these DEI programs and that sort of thing. So this is to just insert a bit of nuance and thought, and to remember, like, still think for yourself. Read books, read the Bluest Eye, like investigate what is it about it. Don't just go with the crowd and be like, okay, they say this book is bad, you know, like Brittany said. And so you don't read it, you don't touch it, and you know, you just end up throwing the baby out with the bathwater, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So
yeah, think for yourself. And also, I'm not trying to say you better like this book. All I'm saying is
right.
Read it.
Yeah. Just read it, and just continue to insert nuance. We don't have to play sides, you know. There's not really a side. You know what I mean?
There is.
There's a side.
There shouldn't be a side.
But there shouldn't be a side.
But what I'm finding out, there are sides. I try my best to just be on the closest side of the truth and where my morals align. That's all I can do, because I've understood people with my free Black thought essay or whatever essay I have, or even this essay, will assume something of me based on what I'm writing. Like, and I'm not on a side, but people might be like, oh, she sounds very liberal, or oh, she sounds very conservative, or oh, she sounds whatever. I'm not fighting no one anymore. Like, you believe what you want to believe. I just know that I don't subscribe to sides, but people will place you there. Place you.
All right, thank you so much, Brittany. Quick question: any music you're listening to? I know we're not being brief right now.
Oh gosh, music. You know, I always stay in the 90s.
Yeah.
I like Aaliyah. I'm always listening to Aaliyah.
Yeah.
Love her. I'm always listening to Lauryn Hill. I'm always listening to who else? Like the Fugees. If you want to add some gospel in there, Kurt Franklin, 90s, the God's Property album, you know. Dang it, I wish girl, I'm gonna send it to you.
Okay.
Who's new? I don't listen to new stuff.
Check out the Dirty Projectors. I'm listening to the Dirty Projectors. They have 3 great songs right now. Okay. I'll send them to you. Inner World, Overlord, and Lose Your Love. You might like them if you're in the 90s right now. It's so dope.
I live there. I live in the 90s. I'm never not in the 90s, but yeah.
Okay, dope. Thank you so much, Brittany. And
awesome.
Thank you everyone for watching. Please drop your thoughts below, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.
Peace. See ya. Oh, law number 3. I am not going to cry. That's for sure. Hold on. I got to get her book. There's a couple of books I have. Get these. I'm not going to cry. So I started journalism for many reasons. Ida B. Wells was one of them, but writing and having the confidence to pursue writing was mainly because of this woman. And that is Toni Morrison. Unfortunately, passed away in 2019. And I remember that day. I remember being in New York, in Brooklyn, on my couch, and I actually was pretty sick that day. And I looked at my phone and I saw that a notification that she passed away, I just dropped my phone and I just bawled crying. I was just like, this is not even real. And I'm gonna cry again. This is when I wish I had makeup people. I can't believe I'm crying. Like, but Toni Morrison, yes, when she passed away, I was very, very upset. And just so everyone knows, this book in particular, The Bluest Eye, completely, I keep saying changed my life a lot with a lot of these people, but I guess this is why they're on the list, because in ways they have. But this book, it is fiction, but it is nonfiction, and the premise and like the context and what it's about. It's about something very real that definitely, specifically little girls with my skin tone suffer through when they're young, especially if they grow up in a white community, which is colorism. Colorism is basically within your own community, and this is a global issue. Like, this happens with Middle Eastern communities and Asian communities, and really, I would say almost every community of color. And yeah, I don't really care what people say, like, community of color, white people are color. Yes, white people are color. You know what I mean? Chill. But this book, it talks about colorism, and colorism is it's a global issue with different races across this world, and specifically in America with the Black community, which it originated, it's like a symptom that originated from slavery, where dark-skinned slaves were outside, light-skinned slaves were inside, and now that has trickled down into, down in history, and now still resides, sadly, in 2020, but it's being talked about, which is monumental. So at least we're having discussions. But this book, when I think it took me until 18 to realize what colorism was. The phrase was coined by Alice Walker, and it was coined, I believe, in the 70s. If I'm not right, I'll put the date here. But when I read this book, I felt like I was being really seen, because when I was growing up in Columbus, I was usually the only Black kid, and I grew a weird distance and dislike for the shade of my skin. And it wasn't just like, oh, you're Black. It was because I was this color. And my mom was very light skinned. My dad is this color. And I would always wish I was lighter. I was like, if I was just lighter, life would be better and be easier. And this is exactly what this little girl in this book was praying for. She was praying for blue eyes, and which means she was praying to be white. What this girl goes through is not fiction. Like, this is what happens to a lot of women. I would say almost every woman that's not light skinned, and that's nothing against light skinned people, because you're born the way you're born, you can't help it. That's you. But society does treat darker skin and brown skinned women differently. They see us differently. That's just fact. Not arguing with no one in the comments. Don't care. But this book just changed my perception on myself. And then when I realized what it was, when I realized what colorism was, and I studied it, and I remember doing a thesis on this book and about colorism, And then my hunger to understand what this problem and matter was, and to do more work on it. I did a thesis on it. But I think I was so passionate about researching colorism because I was trying to gut it out of me, if that makes sense. The more I learned about how it worked, I literally could see it everywhere, and it just freed my mind from having that horrible relationship with my skin. And I love my skin now. You can't tell me nothing. But and now I try to do that with other people and try to amplify that with other people in my community and people I come in contact with. And it's because of this book was the catalyst of it. And it was because of this book she gave me the drive to just write. If you want to write, write. But she is phenomenal, and you know, she lives. I mean, I say everyone, she lives on. Yes, like, but man, I wish that she was still here. I really do. I wish I could have met her, but I love her. And thank you, Toni.